The story opens on a stormy night outside a billionaire's mansion, lightning cutting through the sky and reflecting off the sleek body of a $10 million car, the most advanced hypercar ever built. Its engine is dead silent, its creator standing beside it, drenched in rain and disbelief. A dozen top engineers, mechanics, and automotive geniuses have tried to bring it back to life, but no one could fix it. Cameras flash, the billionaire's pride crumbles, and the whispers grow louder. How could the man who owns everything fail at the one thing that defined him? Just as hope fades, a soft but firm voice rises from the crowd. Give me a minute. Everyone turns, stunned. Standing there is a young black homeless girl, soaked, shivering, but with eyes full of quiet certainty. The narrator's voice cuts in, "Hey everyone, welcome back to Swift Tale, where real stories ignite the spirit. If you're visiting for the first time, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because today's story will make you question what true genius really looks like." You then pose a thought-provoking question. What if the person the world ignores holds the answer everyone is searching for? You briefly summarize what's about to unfold: the story of a proud billionaire, a broken $10 million masterpiece, and a homeless girl who defied every expectation. You hint that what happens next isn't just about fixing a car, but about fixing perspectives, reminding viewers that brilliance, courage, and purpose don't wear designer suits. Sometimes they wear torn hoodies and carry the scars of survival. You end the introduction with an emotional note. This story matters because it proves that no dream is too small and no person too forgotten to change the world. Cross was a man who believed that perfection could be bought, built, and owned. Born into wealth and driven by obsession, he wasn't just a billionaire. He was a symbol of control, success, and power. His world revolved around speed, luxury, and dominance. Every morning, his mansion's gates opened to reveal an empire of machines, cars, jets, and prototypes that most people could only dream of touching. Yet among all his possessions, there was one creation that stood above the rest: the Phoenix One, a car he personally funded, designed, and developed with the best minds money could buy. It wasn't just a car. It was supposed to be the future of mobility, a $10 million engineering miracle powered by AI and next-generation hybrid technology. To Leonard, the Phoenix One was more than metal and code. It was his legacy. On the night of the grand reveal, dozens of reporters and investors filled his marble driveway. Cameras flashed, the media buzzed, and Leonard stood proudly in front of his creation, smiling like a king presenting his crown jewel. But when he pressed the ignition, expecting the roar of innovation, there was only silence. A second press, nothing. Confusion swept through the crowd. Whispers turned into murmurs. Technicians rushed in, checking circuits, sensors, and systems, but the car wouldn't respond. Leonard's smile faded, his jaw tightened. He barked orders, his voice trembling between rage and disbelief. How could this be? Months of research, billions in investment, and the best team in the world, and the car refused to start. As the hours dragged on, humiliation replaced pride. News outlets began to tweet live updates. Billionaire's $10 M car fails to start during launch event. Some guests quietly slipped away, others stayed to witness the drama unfold. Leonard's hands shook as he watched one expert after another open the hood, plug in diagnostic tools, and shake their heads in defeat. It wasn't a mechanical issue, it was something no one could identify. The AI system had locked itself, refusing all commands, almost as if the car had a mind of its own and chose silence over obedience. Inside, Leonard's mind raced. To him, this wasn't just a machine failure, it was an insult to his genius. He had always believed that money could solve anything, that talent could be bought, and perfection was just a transaction away. But now, under the rain-soaked sky, his empire of logic cracked. The Phoenix One, the symbol of his control, was mocking him. His arrogance began to feel heavy, almost suffocating. In that moment, as the cameras captured his frustration, Leonard had no idea that salvation was standing just outside the crowd, in the form of a young girl who had nothing to her name but everything he had lost: intuition, heart, and a pure love for creation. By the following morning, the story of Leonard Cross and his silent $10 million car had spread across the internet like wildfire. Headlines mocked him: billionaire's dream machine turns into a $10 million paperweight. Even genius can't buy functionality. What was supposed to be his greatest triumph had become a global embarrassment. The world laughed, analysts speculated, and rival companies secretly celebrated. But Leonard wasn't the kind of man to surrender to humiliation. Instead, he doubled down, calling in the best automotive minds from Germany, Japan, and Silicon Valley. His mansion turned into a mechanical battlefield, with technicians working around the clock. Every tool, every diagnostic software, every specialized engineer was brought in. They replaced circuits, rewired control units, ran simulations, and even tried to bypass the AI core, yet nothing worked. The car remained eerily lifeless, its sleek black frame gleaming under the mansion lights, almost as if mocking their efforts. Some swore it wasn't a mechanical problem, but something deeper, a flaw in the soul of the machine. Leonard's frustration grew with every passing hour. He prowled around the car like a lion guarding a broken crown, snapping at anyone who suggested giving up. Days passed, each failure chipped away at the billionaire's certainty. The engineers whispered among themselves, calling the Phoenix One the ghost machine. The car's AI system refused to respond to any external command, and attempts to override it triggered cryptic messages on the dashboard, lines of code no one could decipher. Even the lead developer admitted defeat, telling Leonard that the car might have reached a point of self-lock, an AI defense mechanism that activates only when it detects a flaw in its creator's logic. To Leonard, the idea that his own creation had turned against him felt absurd and terrifying. The once lively mansion now felt like a tomb of silence. Journalists camped outside, hungry for updates. Investors threatened to pull out. Each time Leonard stared at the car, he saw not innovation, but failure. The hum of machines, the flicker of laptop screens, and the endless typing of frustrated engineers filled the air, but the car refused to breathe life again. Then one night, long after the last mechanic had gone home, Leonard found himself sitting in the garage alone. Rain tapped gently against the glass ceiling. He stared at the car's reflection, wondering how something so beautiful could be so empty. For the first time, he felt powerless. He thought of every rule he had broken, every person he had dismissed, every shortcut he had taken in his pursuit of perfection, and yet perfection still eluded him. In that dimly lit silence, surrounded by tools worth millions, he whispered to himself, "What did I miss?" What he didn't know was that, just beyond the mansion's iron gates, life was about to send him the most unexpected answer. Not from another millionaire or scientist, but from someone the world had forgotten, a girl who understood machines not from textbooks, but from survival. The one person who saw life in broken things was about to walk into his story, and with nothing but her hands and heart, she would do what no one else could, make the Phoenix One rise again. Across town, far from marble floors and billion-dollar garages, the rain dripped from cracked rooftops and gathered into puddles that reflected flickering streetlights. Beneath one of those streetlights sat Amara, a 19-year-old girl wrapped in an oversized hoodie, her hands stained with grease, her eyes heavy but alert. Every night she scavenged through dumpsters behind repair shops, collecting broken electronics, discarded batteries, and burnt circuit boards, not to sell, but to learn. To her, every broken object had a story to tell, and she listened carefully. The world called her homeless, but in her mind, she was an engineer without a lab. Amara's story wasn't one of laziness or bad choices, it was one of loss. Once, she had been a top student in an engineering scholarship program, fascinated by the mysteries of energy and design. She used to stay up late building small robots from scrap metal and fixing her neighbors' radios for free. But life had turned cruel when her mother fell ill, and every coin she earned went to medicine that didn't work. When her mother passed away, the bills piled up, the rent expired, and soon she found herself on the streets with nothing but a backpack of tools and a heart full of dreams that refused to die. Even in her darkest nights, Amara found solace in machines. To her, fixing things was a way of fixing herself, restoring order where life had fallen apart. She spent hours studying broken wiring under the dim glow of street lamps, tracing circuits with bare fingers and reimagining how power flowed. People walked past her every day without a glance, just another face lost in the city's blur. But what they didn't see was the spark in her mind, the brilliance that thrived beneath the dirt and exhaustion. One afternoon, while rummaging behind a luxury car repair shop, Amara overheard two mechanics talking about the billionaire's car, the one even geniuses can't fix. Their laughter echoed as they mocked the idea of a $10 million car that wouldn't start. Something in those words caught her attention. A car that advanced and unfixable. She couldn't help but feel drawn to it, not because of the money or fame attached, but because she loved puzzles no one else could solve. That night, as she sat near an old fire barrel, she scribbled equations on a piece of cardboard, imagining what kind of system could fail so completely. "It's not the engine," she muttered to herself, "it's the feedback, the response loop." Her mind raced through possibilities like a storm. Somewhere deep inside, she knew she was right. The next morning, hunger gnawed at her stomach, but curiosity drove her further. Following the distant hum of engines and the glow of the city's richest district, she found herself walking toward the gates of Leonard Cross's mansion. Security guards blocked the entrance, and beyond them she could see reporters, cars, and flashes of light. Amara hesitated, clutching her backpack. What business did a girl like her have there? But something inside her whispered, "Go closer." For days she had walked past problems she couldn't change. But this was a broken machine, a challenge, and maybe a chance. The sound of thunder rolled above her, echoing like fate's invitation. She took a deep breath, stepped closer, and thought to herself, maybe I can fix what no one else can. She didn't know it yet, but the path ahead would not only change her life, it would rewrite everything Leonard Cross believed about worth, genius, and redemption. Rain poured in steady sheets as Amara stood just beyond the iron gates of Leonard Cross's mansion, gripping the straps of her worn-out backpack. She could hear the faint murmur of voices and the occasional burst of static from tools inside. The mansion glowed under the floodlights, a world of wealth and precision that felt galaxies away from her own. Yet something in her chest told her she belonged there at that very moment. Her heart pounded with a strange rhythm, half fear, half certainty. Inside, Leonard paced restlessly around the silent car. His team had been working for hours, but the same hollow hum of failure filled the air. One of the engineers shook his head and said, "Sir, we've exhausted every possibility. The car's system isn't responding to any known protocol." Leonard's jaw tightened, and he slammed his fist on the hood, his patience finally breaking. "Then maybe what I built doesn't want to be fixed," he muttered bitterly. The words hung in the air like a confession. Just then, a faint voice spoke from behind the fence, soft but firm. "Maybe you've been looking at it the wrong way." The guards turned immediately, flashing their lights toward the sound. There stood Amara, drenched, shivering, her clothes muddy but her eyes unwavering. "Who are you?" one of the guards barked. "You can't be here." But before they could push her away, Leonard looked up. Something about her tone, the calm confidence in it, cut through the noise. "Let her speak," he ordered, his curiosity outweighing his anger. Amara took a hesitant step forward. "I heard about your car," she said quietly. "I think I know what's wrong with it." The engineers chuckled, exchanging glances of disbelief. One of them scoffed. "We've had MIT and NASA grads working on it for days. You think you can fix it?" Amara's gaze didn't waver. "Give me a minute," she said simply. The air around them shifted, even the rain seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Her voice wasn't arrogant. It was honest, certain, and full of quiet authority. Leonard studied her. Everything about her screamed impossibility, a homeless girl, soaked and trembling, claiming she could do what his elite team couldn't. But deep down, something in her eyes reminded him of the person he used to be, curious, fearless, unwilling to accept failure. Against every instinct of pride, he nodded. "Fine," he said slowly. "1 minute. You touch that car, and if you damage it, you'll regret it." Amara nodded, her wet curls falling over her face. "I won't damage it," she whispered, stepping forward. The crowd parted, murmuring in disbelief. The billionaire's bodyguards kept a close eye, while the engineers crossed their arms, ready to watch her fail. She knelt beside the car, unzipped her backpack, and pulled out a few small tools, rusty, mismatched, but familiar to her hands. For a moment, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. Leonard folded his arms and stared. Part of him wanted her to fail, to prove that his world still made sense. But another part, the one buried under years of arrogance, silently hoped she'd succeed. The tension was electric. The rain softened, thunder rumbled in the distance, and the girl who had nothing was about to challenge everything. As she examined the car, she gently touched its body, listening to its silence. "Machines talk," she murmured. "You just have to stop shouting long enough to hear them." The engineers rolled their eyes, but Leonard's expression changed, not with mockery, but intrigue. In that moment, 1 second before she reached into the car's engine, two worlds collided. Wealth and poverty, ego and humility, logic and intuition. And though no one could have known it yet, what happened in the next 60 seconds would not only bring the car back to life, it would rewrite both of their destinies forever. The garage fell silent as Amara crouched beside the sleek, lifeless car. The air felt thick with disbelief, the hum of expensive equipment now replaced by the steady rhythm of rain against glass. Leonard stood a few feet away, his arms crossed, his face unreadable but his curiosity unmistakable. The girl's trembling fingers brushed along the car's metal curves with the gentleness of someone greeting an old friend. "You've been shouting at it," she said softly, not looking up. "That's why it stopped listening." The room exchanged uneasy glances. Her words made no sense to anyone but her. Amara opened the small toolkit she always carried in her backpack, nothing fancy, just a mix of worn screwdrivers, loose wires, and salvaged connectors. The engineers whispered among themselves, smirking. "She's going to ruin the system," one muttered, but Leonard raised his hand for silence. "Let her work," he said firmly. Something about the steadiness in her eyes reminded him of the first time he had built something with his bare hands before money replaced passion. She leaned closer to the car hood, unscrewing a small access panel near the front control interface. "The power is fine," she murmured, almost to herself. "It's the response feedback, the AI loops trying to protect the system from itself." The words startled one of the engineers. That was the same theory their top consultant had whispered about but couldn't prove. Amara's instincts weren't guesses. They were sharp, informed, precise. Leonard watched as she carefully rerouted a thin copper wire, humming under her breath, a sound of focus and comfort. Her hands were steady despite the cold. "You treated it like a machine," she whispered, "but you built it like a living thing. It's scared." The billionaire frowned. "Scared?" he repeated, skeptical yet intrigued. She looked up at him then, her eyes glinting under the fluorescent lights. "Everything that learns can also fear failure. You made it too perfect, so it shut down when it couldn't meet your standards." No one spoke. The room was frozen, every eye locked on her. She connected 2 points on the motherboard, used a piece of scrap aluminum foil to bypass a corroded sensor contact, then typed a few lines into the manual override screen. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The silence stretched so long it felt unbearable. Then suddenly, the dashboard flickered. A faint hum pulsed through the car's frame. The lights came alive, glowing a deep amber before turning into a steady blue. Gasps erupted. The engine roared to life with a deep, resonant growl that filled the garage like thunder answering thunder. The car's AI voice, calm, elegant, and mechanical, spoke for the first time in days. "System reboot complete. Welcome back, Leonard." Everyone froze. The sound of the engine was music, smooth, flawless, alive. The same engineers who had mocked her now stood speechless, their faces pale with disbelief. Amara stepped back slowly, wiping rainwater and sweat from her forehead, her lips curling into the faintest smile. She had done it. In 60 seconds, she had solved what hundreds of experts and millions of dollars could not. Leonard's eyes widened, not in anger or pride, but pure awe. For the first time in his life, he didn't have an answer. He stepped closer, his voice low. "How did you?" Amara looked at him and said simply, "Machines talk, I just listened." The humility in her tone hit him harder than the car's success ever could. Reporters outside rushed in as the engine's roar echoed through the mansion. Cameras flashed. The billionaire stood beside the homeless girl who had resurrected his masterpiece, and in that surreal moment, two people from opposite worlds shared something timeless: respect. Leonard didn't see her torn clothes or bare shoes. He saw brilliance, raw and unpolished, but pure as lightning. As she turned to leave, thinking her part was done, Leonard's voice stopped her. "Wait," he said, his tone softer than anyone had ever heard it. "What's your name?" She paused, glanced back, and said quietly, "Amara." And just like that, in 1 minute, in one act of courage, Amara's life and Leonard changed forever. The next morning, the world woke up to a storm, not of thunder this time, but of headlines, hashtags, and disbelief. News channels replayed the video that one of Leonard's guests had secretly recorded. The billionaire's $10 million car, dead for days, roaring back to life under the hands of a young black homeless girl. The clip spread like wildfire across social media. The girl who fixed the impossible, homeless genius shocks billionaire, miracle in the rain. Within hours, Amara's name was on every platform, and millions of people watched, mesmerized, as the unlikeliest person in the room outsmarted everyone else. In the video, viewers could see her calm determination, the quiet way she worked, her soft-spoken confidence, and the raw brilliance in her actions. Comment sections flooded with praise and awe. "She's a genius," one person wrote. "Proof that talent doesn't come from money," said another. Others demanded to know her story. Who is she? Where did she come from? But the truth was, no one knew. To the public, she appeared like a mystery, a ghost who emerged from the storm, performed a miracle, and vanished. Meanwhile, inside Leonard's mansion, chaos turned to reflection. His team stood in stunned silence, some still processing what had happened. A few tried to downplay it, claiming she must have just gotten lucky, but deep down, they knew the truth. She had seen what none of them could. Leonard sat in his study, replaying the security footage over and over. Each time, he found himself more fascinated, not just by her skill, but by the calmness in her eyes. It wasn't luck. It was mastery. She hadn't hesitated for a single moment. She knew. By noon, journalists were camping outside his gates, demanding an interview with both Leonard and the mysterious girl. But Amara was nowhere to be found. After the car had come to life, she'd quietly walked away, disappearing into the city before anyone could stop her. She wasn't used to attention or praise. She'd spent too many years being invisible. Now that everyone suddenly wanted to see her, she vanished like smoke, returning to the alleys and shelters that had become her home. On television, talk shows debated her identity. Some called her a prodigy, others a symbol of wasted potential. A few skeptics tried to discredit her, claiming Leonard had staged the entire event for publicity. But Leonard knew better. That girl had done what his most advanced team couldn't. And the way she spoke about fear, creation, and listening to machines, it haunted him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he'd met someone extraordinary. That night, Leonard appeared on a major news broadcast. When the reporter asked, "Mr. Cross, is it true that a homeless girl fixed your $10 million car?" Leonard didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said quietly, "and not just the car. She fixed something in me too." His words went viral within minutes. The billionaire, known for arrogance and pride, spoke with humility for the first time in years. The world watched as he admitted that brilliance doesn't wear designer suits, and that genius can come from anywhere. Meanwhile, Amara sat under a bridge by the river, watching her reflection shimmer in the water as her own face appeared on a small TV through a nearby cafe window. She couldn't believe what she was seeing: her name, her story, her face, everywhere. For the first time in her life, people were seeing her not as a nobody, but as someone who mattered. Yet deep inside, she felt conflicted. Fame wasn't what she wanted. All she had ever wanted was a chance to belong somewhere, to build something. Leonard's voice echoed through the TV. "If anyone knows where to find her, tell her she's not forgotten. Tell her she changed everything." The rain outside grew heavier, washing over the streets as Amara closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Maybe it's time to stop running." The world had finally noticed her, but what would come next wasn't just recognition. It would be redemption, rebirth, and the beginning of something that neither she nor Leonard could have ever imagined. A week after the stormy night that had made her famous, Amara sat in a small, dimly lit community center, surrounded by people who had finally recognized her talent. Leonard Cross had tracked her down after numerous inquiries and interviews, insisting he wanted to meet her properly, not as a billionaire to a homeless girl, but as one engineer to another. When she walked into the spacious office of his temporary workshop, she felt a mixture of awe and apprehension. The room was filled with state-of-the-art tools, blueprints, and screens flashing intricate codes, a world she had only ever glimpsed in her imagination. Leonard greeted her with a reserved nod. "Amara," he said, his voice quieter than she expected, "I need to understand something. How did you do it? How did you see what no one else could?" She hesitated, tracing her fingers along a workbench as if gathering her thoughts. "I've always looked at broken things differently," she began. "Most people see failure and give up. I see patterns. I see how parts talk to each other. Machines and people, they both have systems. You just have to listen." As the conversation unfolded, Amara revealed the story of her past. She spoke of her time at a top engineering scholarship program, the endless nights building robots from scraps, the triumph of fixing radios for neighbors, and then the tragedy of losing her family. She described the slow collapse of her world, the bills, the eviction, the hunger, and how it had forced her onto the streets. Yet she emphasized that her curiosity never died. Even when she had nothing, she would find broken things and bring them back to life. To her, every failure was a lesson, every discarded object a secret waiting to be understood. Leonard listened silently, astonished. Here was a mind as brilliant as any he had ever encountered, yet it had grown in the harshest environment imaginable. He realized that while he had spent his life buying talent, she had been forced to earn it through survival. The skills he had paid millions for were natural to her. They were the result of a life that had demanded creativity, resourcefulness, and courage. Every decision she made came from intuition honed under pressure, not textbooks or degrees. Amara also explained her approach to the Phoenix One. The car wasn't broken, she said. It was scared. It sensed perfection and was trying to protect itself. You and your engineers saw wires, circuits, and software, but you didn't hear it. You weren't listening. Leonard's brow furrowed. For a man who had always trusted logic, numbers, and control, the idea that a machine could feel fear or that it could communicate in ways beyond the obvious was revolutionary. The truth struck Leonard profoundly. Amara's genius was not just technical. It was emotional, intuitive, human. She had the ability to perceive connections invisible to others, to approach problems not as tasks to be completed, but as systems to be understood. Her homelessness had not hindered her. It had sharpened her senses, forced her to adapt, and strengthened her mind. By the end of their meeting, Leonard felt both humbled and inspired. He offered her more than a job. He offered mentorship, education, and a place in his world where her talent could finally thrive without limits. Amara, still wary but hopeful, realized that for the first time, someone saw her for what she was, not a homeless girl, but a brilliant mind capable of changing the world. This revelation would not only transform her life, but also shift Leonard's perspective forever. He understood now that brilliance could not be bought, and that the world often overlooked the people who mattered most. And as they left the workshop together, he felt the weight of his own arrogance lift slightly, replaced by a newfound respect for the ingenuity that had saved not just his car, but also reminded him what true genius really looked like. Months passed since that stormy night, and the world had not forgotten Amara, but she had changed in ways far more profound than fame or recognition. With Leonard Cross's guidance, she moved into a modest apartment, attended engineering classes, and began working in his innovation lab, a place she had only dreamed of before. Every day was a new challenge, advanced systems, cutting-edge technology, and high-stakes projects. Yet she thrived, not because she was trained in luxury, but because she had survived the harshest classrooms life could offer. Leonard, too, had undergone his own transformation. The arrogance that had once defined him, the certainty that money and privilege could solve any problem, had been replaced with humility. Watching Amara work, witnessing her focus and ingenuity, reminded him of the limits of his own knowledge. He began asking questions he hadn't thought to ask before, listening more than directing, and realizing that true leadership involved nurturing talent, not just commanding it. Their partnership flourished. Amara led a team to enhance the Phoenix One, now reborn as Phoenix Reimagined, implementing innovative features inspired by her intuitive understanding of systems. Leonard, once obsessed with perfection for its own sake, learned to value creativity, intuition, and resilience, qualities money could never buy. Together, they developed prototypes that merged cutting-edge technology with simplicity, elegance, and functionality. Outside the lab, Amara became an inspiration. News outlets continued to cover her journey, not as a one-time miracle worker, but as a symbol of hope for anyone overlooked by society. She visited shelters, mentoring young people, teaching them that intelligence and skill were not defined by circumstance. She had once been invisible, and now she was a beacon, showing that adversity could cultivate brilliance. Leonard's personal growth mirrored hers. He began initiatives to fund education for underprivileged youth, understanding that the world was full of Amaras, talented, capable, but unseen. The billionaire who had once believed his money defined his power now recognized that true influence came from elevating others. He had found redemption not in wealth, but in acknowledging the genius he had overlooked and learning from it. The mansion that once symbolized control now became a hub of collaboration and innovation. The Rainso,